Item 6, Tokyo Convention Amendment Bill, second reading.
SMS Lampimin.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the Minister for Transport, I beg to move that the bill be now read a second time. The civil aviation sector is a key component of Singapore's economy, contributing 6% of Singapore's GDP. Changi Airport's excellent connectivity to the world makes Singapore a global city and a vibrant economic hub. It also enables Singaporeans to fly to various parts of the world for business and leisure. Unruly passengers can affect the safety of air travel. According to the International Air Transport Association, between 2007 and 2016, airlines reported more than 58,000 incidents involving unruly passengers on flights, or about one incident every 1,000 flights. There was an increasing number of serious incidents that resulted in injury to aircrew or other passengers. As air travel grows, the problem of unruly passengers may worsen. Given the importance of civil aviation to Singapore, it is crucial that we uphold Singapore's reputation as a safe and secure aviation hub for all passengers travelling through Changi Airport. Also, as a responsible member of the international civil aviation community, Singapore must do its part to address unruly passenger incidents. That is why the government will accede to the protocol to amend the Convention on Offences and certain other acts committed on board aircraft, also called the Montreal Protocol 2014 to the Tokyo Convention 1963. The Montreal Protocol 2014 expands the jurisdictional scope of the Tokyo Convention 1963, which Singapore is a party to, by extending the criminal jurisdiction of a contracting state to include both the state of landing jurisdiction and the state of operator jurisdiction. The Tokyo Convention Amendment Bill will give effect to the provisions of the Montreal Protocol 2014 and strengthen Singapore's ability to address unruly behaviour on board an aircraft. It will enable Singapore to exercise the state of landing jurisdictions for offences committed on board an aircraft that lands in Singapore, and the state of the operator jurisdiction for offences committed on board an aircraft leased without crew to a lessee whose principal place of business or whose permanent residence is in Singapore. These jurisdictions are in addition to the state of registration jurisdiction, which enables Singapore to exercise jurisdiction over offences committed on board an aircraft that is registered in Singapore. I will now highlight the key provisions of the bill. Clause 3 enables Singapore to exercise the state of the operator jurisdiction. The definition of Singapore-controlled aircraft is revised to include an aircraft that is leased without crew to a lessee whose principal place of business or whose permanent residence is in Singapore. Clause 4 enables Singapore to exercise the state of landing jurisdiction over offences committed outside Singapore on board an aircraft that is not a Singapore-controlled aircraft, which subsequently lands in Singapore with the offender still on board. With this amendment, Singapore can treat any act or omission committed on board an aircraft outside Singapore by an offender who is still on board the aircraft when it lands in Singapore as though it is an offence in Singapore, provided that the act or omission constitutes an offence in Singapore, and take action against the offender accordingly. Clause 6 empowers the commander of an aircraft to take certain actions such as restraining an unruly passenger if the commander has reasonable grounds to believe that a serious offence has been committed on board the aircraft. The commander can also obtain the assistance of a member of the crew, a passenger, or an air marshal on board the aircraft in restraining a person whom the commander is entitled to restrain. In addition, any crew member, passenger, or air marshal on board the aircraft can, without authorization of the commander, take measures under the Act against a person on board the aircraft to protect the safety of the aircraft or persons or property on the aircraft. Clause 7 accords protection from personal liability to certain persons, for example, the commander of the aircraft, a member of the crew, a passenger or an air marshal, when such persons take action permitted under the Act to protect the safety of the aircraft or persons or property on the aircraft. Consequential amendments will be made to the Air Navigation Act and the Police Force Act. The bill will be brought into force in 2 phases. The provisions establishing Singapore's state of landing jurisdiction will be brought into force after the bill is passed. These will enhance Singapore's ability to manage incidents of unruly passengers on flight travelling to, through and from Singapore, and give added protection to passengers on these flights before the Montreal Protocol 2014 comes into force. The remaining provisions will be brought into force on the date the Montreal Protocol 2014 comes into force, which will take place after 22 ratifications have been made. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move.